Also, all right, just the quick and dirty introduction. Jen Korte is also the front person of many projects, including a couple different cover bands. She's got Jen Korte and The Loss. Tonight we're kind of going to be talking about LadyGang the most, which is her solo project. And I remember when you first kind of came out with this project, you stopped, I got to interview you, and you said, it's kind of fun because it is by yourself, but it sounds like it could be many people. And that way you can also invite different people to come in, but it's always kind of you making all of the music, which is super exciting. So to get started, tell me a little bit about your musical journey. When did you start becoming interested in being a musician?
I started teaching myself, so everything I do is self-taught, and I started teaching myself guitar when I was 18. You know, somebody gave me an Ani DeFranco album.
It's always Ani.
And then I wanted to learn guitar. So I've been writing songs and playing songs since then, and you can only get better from there. And here I am 20 years later doing loops and in many different projects, playing all genres of music, which is really awesome for a self-taught person. I feel like people kind of tend to stay in their lane, but I love all music. I love hip-hop, I love rock, I love reggae, I love Latin music, I love some country music. So I'm all over the board, and my projects are all over the board. And LadyGang it's a lady and her gang of instruments. That's why I named it that, like the singular plural, right? So I have all of this accoutrement, but somebody gave me a loop pedal. They left a loop pedal at my house, and I started messing around with it, and then I started writing with it, and then the loop pedal got bigger and bigger, and so now I have a 3-bank. This is a 3-bank loop pedal, which is a lot easier to use than just the one little singular pedal. So I started composing with it, and then I do a lot of weird covers with it, because I was playing brewery gigs. I was playing like 3-hour gigs, and I was getting really bored with myself. So I started looping to kind of pass the time. And then I started producing and recording it and trying to make my recordings sound just like my live performance. So every sound that you hear on the album can be played live. That was really important to me. Mm-hmm. There's like a pureness to it that I don't know if it necessarily needs to be there. Some people are like, you could just hit play. You can just like hit a space bar and play your guitar along with the computer. But I'm such an analog nerd that I wanted to be able to paint soundscapes in front of you. So,
well, and take me through kind of discovering looping, and let's take a step back. Actually, explain what looping is.
So a loop is this is a loop pedal. This big pedal right here on the ground. I don't know if y'all can see it, but basically everything is run into that. I have a pedal board, which is my guitar tones. I can change the sound of my guitar through here. I have a drum machine here. Let's see, I set that right. And then this is also a drum machine, but it also has bass tones. So I have octaves. And then it's kind of like a basic keyboard that I kind of think of it as, just to add extra texture. And then I have a vocal processor that I also use. And everything runs into the loop pedal. And a loop pedal essentially captures live sound. So however long you create the original loop for is how long the other loops will be to match it, if that makes sense. So if you think of music in counts of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I work in 4 beats or 8 beats. I don't like to record longer than 8 beats because the pedal can get wonky, it can get weird, the longer the length of the loop. So I really work in 4 beats or 8 beats, and then I build my other loops off of 4 beats or 8 beats. So when you're recording a loop, you start on the 1. So when I say on the 1, I mean the first beat. So if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, you always hit record on the 1. So if I'm doing this, so here's a tempo, and it's going 1, record, 3, 4, 1, record, 3. if I don't hit the record button on exactly 1, then it sounds really off. So if I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll hear a gap in it. See, it's not smooth. So it's always got to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, and that's what creates a seamless loop. And it took me a really long time. It took me a really long time to do that because you're inherently relying on your own body tempo. Like you have to make up for your own negative space. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And while you're looping, so you've talked about like bass tones, you've talked about like the little keyboard basically, but it also with this, you're also your own percussionist as well. So talk a little bit more about being your own full band while creating this one song in front of everybody with just your guitar.
What do you mean?
We were talking before, and you said my brain is doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, my brain is doing a lot. Like I usually bring a projector that shows like underwater scenes, so that the audience has something to look at because I'm concentrating so hard that I can't like in the middle of the song, even though I want to. Which is also why I like being in a band. Mm-hmm. Sometimes this is really heavy. It's taken me. I've now been doing this for 6 years, and it probably took me 4 years before I felt comfortable trying to do it in public. Because I'm thinking about, there's a lot of things. There's tempo, there's volume. So if my guitar volume is too loud and I record it really loud into the looper, when it plays back, it'll be super loud. And then it's a balancing act between tones. So let me show you what I mean, because it's just easier to do that. So if I start here, okay? And then I add bass. If my bass is too hot or too loud, right? You're like, ugh, that's abrasive. So I have to balance the volume. And then on playback, you can hear it. But if I don't, the volume between this and what it's receiving and then what it's putting out are like 3 different volumes. So that's when I say it took me 4 years to figure it out. It's like, okay, I know every time this volume only needs to be halfway up on this, but it needs to be all the way up on this, and then it has an output volume. So if you just hear the bass, it's got a dedicated volume on the pedal. So I can turn it all the way down, or I can turn it all the way up, right? But I don't ever want it to be overpowering. So I'm also playing and paying attention to that, because I might have to take my foot and turn it down in the middle of the song if you can't hear my vocal over it. So it's a lot of brain. It's a lot of brain power.
On top of just performing music.
On top of performing the song
and
like doing it correctly. It can train wreck really quickly. I've seen some people train wreck with loopers, and I feel for them because it's a whole situation. So it is. So I practice in order of the song. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna do guitar, then I'm gonna add, and all of my banks, I have 3 banks. So in the first bank, I put all of my guitars. Second bank, I put all of my bass and drums. The third bank, I usually do vocals, or if there's extra percussion. That's just how I keep it organized in my mind. Everybody does it differently. And then my mic has an on-off switch, because let's say I'm just recording the guitar, or I'm recording the drums, but I'm talking at the same time, and I don't turn the mic off, it'll record the mic too. So if I'm going like, hey guys, I can't do this at the same time. Hey guys, I can't do this at the same time. See, my brain's already like, oh, no, don't do that. So I have to turn the mic off. So if I'm playing and you see me not playing the guitar and I'm not touching anything, it's because I'm just recording a vocal sound, and I don't want extra guitar parts in there. I don't want static in there. I bought this guitar specifically because it has humbucker pickups, which are these fat silver pickups right here, because they have the least amount of noise, or the quietest guitar. Because I had a different guitar before, and it would just pick up static. It was just like staticky all the time, and I couldn't figure out why. It's a whole thing. I keep talking into this because I forget I have this. Sorry, y'all. Like, which one is it? Yeah, so there's a lot going on. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So I practice in order of what I'm doing, and I practice, like, when do I turn my mic on? When do I turn my mic off? Like, really being aware of that, because it'll feed back, it'll pick up room noise, it'll pick up all kinds of stuff. So I have to make sure that I have an on-off switch mic, which really changed my life. When I got that, I was like, oh,
Yeah, this is it.
Well, it just makes the sound so much cleaner. It's just so much, less messy.
You are going to basically build up a song for us. But before we get to that, I did want to talk about your guitar. That's kind of part of what I love hearing about, is why you chose that guitar. So you already started in on it. But talk a little bit more about this Epiphone and why it's really perfect for LadyGang. And do you use it in your other projects also?
Yes, I do. This is like my first big girl guitar. I had some cheaper guitars, and being in 4 bands, I was like, I need a better guitar. Better guitar is just, the intonation's better, meaning it'll hold your tuning better. These are tuner locks. There's tuner locks on here, so once you tune it, it can stay in tune. And then I love it because I'm half desert, half ocean, and it feels like, to me, the sun is setting into the water, which is why I picked this guitar, and I love it a lot. And I got it like in my hands 2 weeks before COVID, and then I was like, no. So it didn't get to be played out for a very long time. I do loop sometimes with my acoustic. If I'm doing like a country or a classic rock thing, like I'll loop with my acoustic just so I can play along to myself, essentially, like build up fun acoustic songs, play little solos on them.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about this gear. I want to talk a little bit more about that build-up and maybe like the most you can do. But let's get to the next song, and I will let you build it up.
Okay.
And we'll get into this next one.
Somehow I ended up here in a landlocked world. I'd rather you sink me to the bottom. 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 I'd rather you sink me to the bottom.
Truths by LadyGang, aka Jen Korte.
Yeah.
And we just need to make a double check on some of our sound with the internet. Can you do it?
Okay.
And we're back.
Well, and let's run through kind of the buildup of that song anyways.
Okay.
So what are you kind of mentioned your basic run through for every single song, but what are you actually doing? What are you looking at while you're building up that song?
Okay.
I'll build the bones. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm next to the speaker, so it didn't sound any different to me. So I'm gonna do the guitar first, so I would turn off the mic. Right, and I'm doing 8 counts on that. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the next one is gonna be the bass. So I'm gonna do it 2 times. Now drums. Now percussion, which is just a little tambourine sound. There we go. out, so we're just at percussion. And then I add delay to give it that surf sound. And then turn my mic on and add a little bit of reverb. She says my mind is all over the place. So that's the verse, right? And then I'm gonna bring the drums back in for the chorus, which means I'm gonna add distortion on the guitar and then add the drums back in. 3, 4. Take them out. And then turn the distortion back off for the clean guitar for the rest of the verse. And then when I go to the bridge, I have to stop all of it at the same time. So when I hit so there's 3 banks. I have to hit 2 banks at the same time to turn them on and off. So if I hit them, which means I have to wear the right kind of shoes too, it's like a whole thing. Like I have to have a wide enough shoe to hit 2 pedals. Right? So if I were going into the bridge, but I could never be satisfied. Living on the other side. Could you? And then I put my foot back, because I know I gotta turn it back on again. Guitar solo. That took me forever, like being able to turn them off and then not be like to turn them back on in time. It took me forever. So yeah, it's a whole thing. And then the end, singing the chorus, I add extra reverb. So I've got them back on. So I'm reaching down here to really reverb it out, just turning it up. I'd rather you sing me to the bottom. 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 And then we sound like we're in a cathedral or underwater. I'd rather you sing me to the bottom. I'd rather you sing me to the bottom. And I'm gonna turn it off while I'm playing it and hope it's seamless. Going back to just I'd rather you sing me to the bottom. So I took the guitar out by playing along with it at the same time.
And that's how you write a song.
And that's how you write a song, everybody.
It's that quick and that easy. Talk to me a little bit more about the setup and why you have things where they are. And you touched base on this wearing the right shoes, because that's also, it turns out, a part of your setup. It's not just a fashion choice.
Yeah. So I can wear cowboy boots. I can loop in cowboy boots because they're wide. I tried to loop in my Doc Martens, and it was just real fumbly. But it's good to have something with kind of a pointed toe, because sometimes I have to adjust volumes with my foot, or there's a tempo guide. So to practice looping, you can set a metronome, and you can play along to it. And you can tap tempo, and tap tempo means you can tap it fast or slow. Or you can adjust it with a knob, which I can do with my toe. So it's tricky, but sometimes I start a song with that in, with the metronome in, and then I'll turn it off because I don't want that. I mean, that's not the coolest tone in the world, the whole time. So I turn it off, but yeah, so having shoes is like a whole thing.
In
Which
our
is
last
probably why I started wearing tracksuits to play
Full
in,
outfit,
'cause- yeah, full outfits, because
kind of wear the
I can wear
Nike.
some kicks and make it look cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So during our last session, we spoke with Anna Morissette of the Still Tide, and she kind of broke down pedals and why she uses pedals and how, and it basically makes different sounds for your guitar. You have a nice setup here. Why did you choose these specific pedals to bring with you for LadyGang?
So this is kind of it's my setup for all my bands. Every pedal board, I think, should have a reverb pedal if it's not built into your amp. And because I'm running direct, meaning I'm not running through an amp to run into this, so I want a better tone. So I have a reverb that just warms up the sound. It's got like that little bit of echo. If I take it off, It's just real dry. So I just want a little bit warmer tone. So I have this for reverb, but it also, this is a multi effect. So I have tremolo and there's like synth strings in here. It gets real trippy. And then I have two different kinds of distortion on one pedal. One's more fuzzy, and then I have more like a blues tone. Every pedal board needs a delay pedal. I have two. So I have the carbon copy, which delay is just echo. So having it bounce back a little bit, but I don't want it to keep going. I don't want it to keep swirling around or it'll feed back. So I just use it for mainly soloing. Like, I like the tone of a little bit of distortion and delay, and then I have reverse delay, which takes the notes and reverses it. So I like that spacing. I use that one a lot too. And then I have a bass synth pedal. I'll get to that in a sec. And then I have another synth pedal, which synth is a keyboard, right? So this basically makes keyboard sounds for the guitar. So it's got probably 10 different kinds of 10 different kinds of synth sounds there. Which I got at the flea market, brand new, by the way. If you're looking for gear, go to the Mile High Flea Market. None of these artisan flea markets. Go to the Mile High Flea Market and haggle. And so I also buy all my pedals used because I don't know if I want it. Like,
That's a commitment.
It's a commitment, and they're expensive. So I usually will buy a cheap version of what I think I want, play with it, resell it, and then buy the higher end version of it if I'm committed to it. And then I have an A/B switch, which is basically allows me to plug my bass in and my guitar in and set volumes for both. And then I have a bass synth pedal. It's a lot of S's in this conversation, but so that's really the only sound I use it for. There's like 7 settings, but that's the only one I like. So
That's the sweet spot.
yeah, it's a sweet spot. It's for like 2 songs, but it's cool. It's a cool sound. Yeah, so all of that is running into. I have a baby mixer here. That's a 4-channel mixer, which means you can plug 4 things into it. So I have this plugged into that, and I have my guitars plugged into that, and then that's going out of the mixer into the loop pedal. It's a lot.
It's a lot, and
I wish I could draw y'all a diagram right now.
It is extensive. Maybe we'll take a picture and put it up on like Instagram or something. But
Yeah.
with all of these different sounds and with the looper, it seems like you're able to kind of create any sound that you want on your own at any given time. So
Yeah.
talk about maybe you got this little kernel of an idea in your head about a song. How do you go about then coming to your setup and making that into something and building it out even more?
Yeah, for me, I don't really write lyrics first. I write music first. So I have loops that I've just been playing for years. I hope one day will have lyrics to them. I don't really know. I just kind of start with a rhythm guitar, and then, or sometimes if I'm trying to challenge myself, I will go into Logic and find a beat, find just a different kind of rhythm that I would normally write to, and write to that. So you can save samples in here. I try to do everything live. I do have some drum samples in here because these just don't have as much booty as I want sometimes. You just want like a really thick drum sound. So I do have drums saved in here, but that's a whole process. So if I'm in Logic and I find a four count beat that I like, then I have to export it out of Logic on the computer, change the file name to a specific type of file name, plug in the loops. This took me like 2 weeks to figure out. I had to watch like so many YouTube videos. and then rename the file in the loop pedal. So
it's a whole process.
it's a whole process.
You gotta really want
If I have to add, like, if I want to add anything to the loop pedal, I'm like, because it takes a while to figure it out. But and even then, so I keep talking about the balancing of volumes. You know, making sure this isn't too loud, making sure this isn't too loud, making sure this isn't too loud. When you find samples on Logic or Ableton or whatever, and you want to save them in the loop pedal, you have to make sure you're not bouncing those files at a really high volume, because then anything you play over it you can't hear it, because the volume is just so loud. And that also took me a long time to learn.
All right, we're going to get to another song here in just a sec. But before we get to that, I want to know what a practice looks like. Let's say, what did last night look like before you got here? You're practicing these songs. What does it look like? What does the maintenance
last night,
look like?
today, I practice a lot, y'all. I practice a lot because I want it to look really easy. I want it to be like, wow, that looks really easy.
I could do that.
I could do that. I could totally do that. But it's very hard. And I probably spent at least 3 hours today practicing, just running things in order. So practice for me is like, okay, I'll write down, I'll figure the song out, I'll go through and figure out what is first, guitar one first, bass, drum sample, percussion sample, guitar two, drums out, this, that. So I'm really practicing a routine, just a straight up routine of sound. Yeah.
All right, let's get to this next song then.
Okay.
All right.
We'll do one on bass.
Exciting. This is Be the Lights.
No, I'm gonna do Full Throttle, actually.
All right, sounds good. This is off of your latest album that came out a year ago.
Yes.
Exciting.
Yes.
Title track.
I'm excited. So I released a 8-song full-length album last year that I recorded, engineered, produced, mixed and mastered myself. So I'm just celebrating the anniversary of that this past weekend. And this is the title track called Full Throttle.
And I'm going to use the vocal processor a lot in this.
Not a lot, but
Right, I know. It's such a party trick, y'all. Like, get
do one of these and just talk to your friends. Like sometimes at shows I'll be like, "Hey, girl, what's up?" It's so stupid.
All right. And he's like a band member. Like, I think he's like a band member. Like, he's my dude. Like, if I were a man.
I would be this setting, which is called Barry White, by the way. But
Even this setting is tricky. Like, if you don't round your vowels, because it's a digital sound, right? So it's taking your voice and digitally manipulating it. If you're right on the mic,
boom, 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 boom. It'll manipulate your tone. Boom, 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 boom. Kind of like using auto-tune.
so this is another one that's got all kinds of weird harmonies in it. I don't really use it a lot, but if you don't if you're not on pitch, it starts wibble wobbling. That's a professional term.
Just so you know. Okay, we're gonna do it. This is called Full Throttle.
Can you tell me how to quit that? Get back, push me on stage and let me hit that beat while I wrestle my demons in front of these peeps that don't understand this ain't for the weak. Going full throttle, full beast, like I haven't had a belly full of anything in weeks. Haven't had time to contemplate what it means when I'm pushing pennies just to put into my dreams. Just moving forward every day, even if the gigs don't pay, even if the crowd don't sway, even if y'all hate my face, I'm staying for good. Oh yes, I'm staying for good. And the beat goes bow, 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 bow. And the beat goes bow, 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 bow. And the beat goes bow, 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 bow. And the beat goes bow, 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 bow. Will I be my own witness to my bliss? Will I let time tell me I can handle this? Get a job just to say I got some benefits. My skill sets become distant memories. My thoughts stay wrapped in what might have been. Time never flies when you watch and the hands spin. Don't think that's for me. Sometimes truly believe I have everything I need. Truly believe you ain't got nothing on me. Truly believe, yeah, I truly believe. So I'm moving forward every day. I'm moving forward every day. Well, I'm moving forward every day. Even if the crowd don't sway, even if the gig don't pay, even if COVID took it away, I'm staying for good. Oh yes, I'm staying for good. Na 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 na. Bow, 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 bow. Na 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 na. Bow, 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 bow. Na 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 na. Bow, 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 bow. Na 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 na. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. It's probably a lot better when you can hear the song, you know? Probably helps.
We can hear you. Pretty good.
Hey. It's getting tricky.
All right, so this is what you do.
Yeah.
Gone over the setup.
Yes.
Do you pay attention to other folks in the community or across the music industry who also do looping and kind of see what they're doing, see what you can maybe do different, or are you just still kind of honed in on how you can grow by yourself?
That's a good question. Everybody does it differently. Like Felix, who will be here, is the next session. He's rad. Or the session after, sorry. Felix and I, like, we'll set up our laboratories together. He runs everything digitally. So he has a keyboard, a MIDI keyboard running through a computer, and he does Ableton, and he plays guitar over that. And he has a loop pedal that only has one bank. So we'll just tell each other, hey, our tempo is this, and we'll set our tempos together, and then we're able to loop together. And we improv a lot of stuff, so that's cool to kind of have a language with it. It's difficult. You have to know what you're doing to do it. And then we have a live drummer that'll sit in with us sometimes, and we'll just improv. We call it the preserves because we bring the jams, but it's such a fake band. It's like not even a real band. But we'll go improv for like 3 hours or 2 hours with a drummer and both of our loop setups. So I learn a lot from him, but I'm very analog. I do see people running Ableton into the looper. I see people using a looper just for samples, like they don't actually loop. They just use it as a bank, like a MPC, or they're just using it to hold samples that they want for their music. So that's always weird to me, because I'm like, you have a loop pedal, but you don't actually play into it. You're just playing to it. It's like loop karaoke, kind of. Yeah, and I see a lot of dudes that are like, doing a lot of beatboxing and like woo, pass, woo, like kind of vibe. So I feel very, very different from that vibe. I see a lot of that. I played a loop festival, and I was first of all, I was the only female, and second of all, I was the only one using really using composition versus just adding and adding and adding and adding layers. I think that's what's different for me. I could just sit here and add and add and add and add layers, but I'm creating a song. I want to start in one place and end in another, versus just showing off like, I got 15 guitar parts. Like, it gets a little confusing. Yeah, like Tosh Sultana only uses she only has one bank. She has one bank on her pedal board. So she's only recording one sound at a time versus having 3 things to trigger. But her pedal board has like 900 pedals on it. Like, it's the biggest pedal board ever. It's like this crazy giant pedal board with all these tones, but she's really only looping 2 chords and on one bank, which is, I don't know, it's interesting. I don't want to say like mine's more complicated than what she does or anybody's is less complicated, because I've been told that looping is not a skill or it's not an instrument, and I think it is an instrument because you really have to know what you're doing. You have to learn it to do it. And
Right.
It is technology that allows me to compose without having like, without having, like, I could tour with this and I sound like a full band. I don't have to worry about 5 band members' schedules. Like, that's kind of part of how LadyGang got started too. I was like, I can take this out and have a full song and just be me. And it's financially more stable as well.
Right.
On gig stuff, so, yeah.
And I kind of alluded to this with the practice piece of it. Those are the songs that you have already got. But are there any of the other skills where you're like, okay, I just need to practice this one thing with this one sound over and over and over again before you apply it to a song? Or is there something that maybe catches your ear and you're like, ooh, I kind of want to unfold that a little bit more?
Yeah, like I'll improv a lot at home, but I'll record it, and then I'll be like, how the hell did I do that? So then I go back and try to break down things that I did. Like I'm writing a show right now about being underwater, and I came home and just plugged in the looper and hit record and recorded this 10-minute long piece that I have yet to completely recreate, because I don't know what the hell I was doing, or it's like, was the guitar this much out of tune, or was I in a different tuning but playing major chords, I think is what actually happened. So I have to go back and break it down, listening to my own improv of like, okay, I'm gonna record this whole thing and I'm gonna pick pieces out of it that I like. And I do that with like hip hop remixes. Like, I do a hip hop remix of Explosive by Dr. Dre, and I improv'd it for a while. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna learn the bass line, and I've got the click to it. So, and then I created all these different layers on top of it. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. So I'll go through and pick out little ones, and then compose it from there, and then practice it from there, and then sink or swim in front of a live audience with it.
No pressure.
No pressure.
And you have this set up. Is there anything specific? Is there a song that includes every single thing that you've got on here? Do they all include everything? Do they just include bits and pieces? And how do you decide which piece goes where?
Yeah, I mean, Simple Truth uses everything. It uses a pedal board, it uses a beat machine, it uses the bass tones, it uses a vocal processor. A lot of them use a lot of it. The drums, though, sometimes I don't like to create. I'm not a drummer, y'all. I'm like not a drummer. I wish I was. I really wish I was. But my playable beats are pretty rudimentary. So sometimes I don't use the beat machine just because I have like Full Throttle has this trap beat saved in it because I wanted a trap beat and I don't know how to play a trap beat, and I'm not going to try to attempt to play a trap beat. So. But I use I use all of it, except for maybe the drum pad, which this is new in almost every song.
And to go off of that, how much are you adding into a song? How far along are you adding stuff into the single song? Because you said you don't want to add a ton of stuff, but you still make a very full sound based off of what you've shown us already.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a function on this pedal that is called undo redo. So you can only undo the last thing you did. So like on My Imagination, the first song that I played, Are You a Figment of My Imagination? I kept undoing it, which means it deleted it out of the loop. And then I would redo it when I wanted it to come back in. So there are, like, that's a way to kind of get around having a concrete loop in there. It's like another texture that you can add. You just have to outsmart the technology. And the reason I bought this loop pedal specifically is because it has a good sound card, and you can save a bank to play back in reverse. So I can play it in straight, and then the playback will immediately reverse the sound, which is pretty cool. Like I use that on How to Use Sound. So yeah, I mean, it's a constant evolution. Like I just got that, and now I don't like that anymore because that sounds good, and I'll probably get something else. But it's a constant evolution of equipment and pedals. This is just where I'm at right now. Who knows?
You can say. We do have time for one more song, and then we can also do Q&A. So if you have any questions here, save them for after the song. I have one more before we get to this last song, however.
Okay.
Your original inspiration. You were playing guitar on its own, and what really drove you to go explore the loop as it was sitting in your house? What was the spark that was like?
Playing breweries. I was so bored. I was just like,
Need something else.
yeah, I was just background music to myself, really, at that point. I don't know if any of you ever played brewery gigs, but you're definitely not like the focal point of what's going on. So it was cool to find it at that time because I'm playing 3-hour things. I'm like, oh, I can loop 2 chords. Like I can just, that's all I got to do is loop 2 chords to be able to kind of solo over it. It also really helped me, even if I weren't composing with it, if I can loop 2 chords or 4 chords and practice soloing, that just made me like such a better guitar player because I could just have that on loop, and I can practice feeling like I'm practicing with a band even though I'm not. I'm by myself. Yeah.
Alrighty, keep your questions. We got one more song. LadyGang, aka Jen Korte.
All right.
So this is a song, I rarely ever play it, but I thought I would play it tonight. It's called For Valeria, and it's about, so I'm half Latina, and I think about people being willing to, people are willing to die to get to this country. So I've been thinking about that a lot the past few years, specifically in my own family. And this is a song called For Valeria, which was about a family that tried to cross the Rio Grande and didn't make it. So, but I want it to be hopeful because when people leave their countries to come here, they're hopeful and they're willing to do that because they believe that they can get there and have a better life. So I wanted to play that tonight. It also has some cool samples in it that I'll tell you about in just a minute. So
We're going to bring him back for just a second.
okay.
There's 6 billion ways to die. Choose one.
of the hounds, getting closer, closer. They're getting closer, closer. They're getting closer, closer. And we hold hands on the way, on the way. Nobody knows if we're gonna make it home. Don't know where I'm going cause I can't see the road. Scattered like ashes on the winds of no souls. Buried like bones in cages, no homes. Buried like secrets that everybody knows. Covered in the fear of the people you don't know. Covered in the hate of the dirt you have sown. And we hold hands on the way, the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's his name again?
The setting is called Barry White, but if I had an alter ego, it would be Jackson. I feel like his name is Jack. I don't know. I'm just.
I'm gonna turn it off now.
We're gonna say bye.
I'm getting weird.
Jen Korte, aka LadyGang, everybody.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I do have a question
Yeah, go
from
ahead.
the internet, and if anybody else has a question, just raise your hand. We've got a mic. So let me pull it back up. Are you working on any new instruments or new machines to add to this collection?
I am learning. So my grandfather's from Puerto Rico, and I bought an instrument called the cuatro, which is a. It's weird because it's called the cuatro, which you think has 4 strings, but actually has 10 strings, and it's kind of the cross between a mandolin and a guitar, and it's specific to Puerto Rico. So I have been learning that, but I can't mute it, so I haven't been able to loop with it yet, because if I loop with it, it'll just keep ringing. So I have to install an actual pickup system in it, like an actual mute on it. But I have been writing with that a lot, for sure, at home. I'm not totally ready to pull it out yet. No new machines other than this drum pad, which I really haven't had very long. And you can download like different kits. Like you can download kits that sound like 90s garage band or hip hop kits and that kind of thing. So I haven't dug into the downloading of that yet, because I feel like I just got a handle on all this. Now I got to spend significant hours learning how to change the tones on this thing, which would be cool, because I can probably program in some different samples too, like just pads, keyboard pad sounds. Yeah.
Do you have any questions from the audience?
You have any questions? Come on, nobody? Really? Nobody? Y'all are like, it's late. It's late, Jen. So that song, this sample actually, this is the actual ocean from when I was on my honeymoon in Italy, and it's just a voice memo that I added a heartbeat to with this little guy.
Anyway, just cool little tiny bit of trivia there, because I wanted the sound of the water. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, well, if there are no more questions, you can ask the museum. I'll get them to Jen, and then we'll get them out. Oh, we have a question right here, actually. We've got the mic.
Hi.
I've seen you play in a variety of configurations, whether it was straight acoustic or in the brewery scene, and then also just some really big band stuff. And I just wonder how much the last couple years of COVID has really influenced this need and your development in this, and both the positives and negatives. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I had an existential crisis. I think every person, let alone artist, did. Because when I keep answering in this. I have a mic. I keep forgetting I have this mic. I kind of didn't know who I was without the stage. The stage is where I feel like the most safe and the most me and the most purposeful is on stage. So not having a stage really messed with me. I also think we're kind of in a renaissance right now, where if you did stick with art and you did keep creating, that you're thinking about how you're creating differently for people to experience art in a new way. I know I am. It also gave me, I'm a pivoter, right? So if something happens, I'm gonna pivot. And so I pivoted into I learned live streaming, I learned green screens, which then led me to learn film and editing software. I started making my own music videos. I took a 9-week class with the music district in Fort Collins on how to write music for TV and film. And I'm in 4 bands, so prior to COVID, I didn't have time for any of that. It was like, okay, what's on the dot? What am I practicing for today to get through this week? And because it could have been a 90s gig, and then a Lost gig, and then a LadyGang gig, and then a country gig. So every day was like, okay, I just have to practice today on this one gig. And so I didn't really have time to think about what my artist identity was, even though I feel like I have several of them. But to be able to, and I'm also a theater kid, like I was a super, super theater kid. So being able to kind of learn the internet in a new way, because I'm from a generation where we didn't have the internet, and now we have the internet. So to me, it's never been like a real thing. And I'm learning that it is. I mean, I know that it is, obviously, but you know what I mean? Like people really find community on the internet, and I started making weird sketches. Like I learned how to video edit, and I would make these weird videos of different characters I had in my brain. Like I remember when it was -5 degrees outside, and I put on, my wife is also born on Halloween, so we have a lot of costumes at home. And I was ordering just weird stuff off the internet, like beards and just exotic clothes I would never have thought to wear before, like this spacesuit. Like, why do I have a spacesuit? COVID. Yeah, COVID. I would just lay in bed at night, like in my existential crises, like, what can I look for on eBay that I couldn't find? Like, let's look up tropical shirts from the Virgin Islands from 1994, like really specific stuff. But it was like negative out, and I put on this fringe jacket and a big beard, and I was like, I'm Dwayne, and I was like out in the yard hunting for deer with my BB gun. My brother called me. He was like, you're getting real weird. Like, I think you need to hang out with your friends. You need to see some people. And I was like, no, I've always been weird. I just figured out how to be weird on the internet. And now that I'm back, now that I'm kind of back to gigging, I'm not back to gigging the way that I was, and I don't really want to be back to that, to be honest. It's really hard. I've been in music for 20 years, and I've been in Denver for 15 of those years, and I keep trying to create opportunity for myself, and it's just hard to financially sustain yourself here as a full-time musician. And so I don't want to go back to that, so I'm trying to think on a bigger scale. Like I'm writing an immersive show that I designed a stage for, and there's a film to go with it, to just level up. So it really forced me to level up in a lot of ways, not only in my music production and writing, but in video and engagement. And I've had stupid videos that I didn't think mattered to anybody. Like, I forget that there's strangers on the internet watching these. Like, to me, it's my friends, who are like, oh, Jen's being weird today. But I've had several strangers come up to me and be like, yo, your videos in COVID really helped me get through COVID. And you just don't think about, you know, I was like, I have to create something because I'm losing my mind. So I'm gonna spend 6 hours making this weird 1-minute video, my poor wife, and not realizing that it's impactful. So art is impactful in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be just live performance, it's what you bring. Because I kept feeling like, what's my role? Especially during the protests, right? You're like, what's my role? I have asthma. If I get hit with tear gas, like I'm gonna have an asthma attack. It's not good for me. My wife's like, you can't go down there. So it's like, okay, well, I can write this song, or I can like help communicate between groups. Like everybody needs support in different ways. It's not just a microphone. I'm just very blessed to be able to have a microphone and have a stage. And so it really forced me also socially to look inward and ask myself, like, what do you stand for? Like even telling y'all about my Hispanic family. Like I talk about that because it's important. I don't look that way at all. But there are people being hated in this country for that, and it's my job, if I have a microphone, to say something important and to bring attention to that. It doesn't always have to be serious. Like the 90s band is not serious. Like it's pure joy. Let's not get it twisted. It's pure joy. But when I do have the ability to speak to people from my heart on a stage, then I try to take that opportunity. So that, I guess that's a very long-winded answer to your question, but thank you for asking that.
Do we have any other questions? All right. Do you have any gigs coming up?
Oh yes, my band that I started with in Denver is called Jen Korte of Loss, and over time it has evolved. I started out as like the sad little baby lesbian singer-songwriter, just like recreational pining for life, and it's evolved into like pretty rock and roll. I keep saying, like, you know, I'm half Hispanic, I'm half desert, half ocean, and the band sounds like that now. So I've got Latin percussion. It's all women that I've hired to play. I think that's super important. And we're playing the High Dive next Saturday, and I'm really stoked. I'm really, really stoked. So we kind of start in Puerto Rico and New Mexico, and we end in Texas, where I'm from. So I'm really excited about that. And then LadyGang gig. I haven't been booking LadyGang gigs, honestly. I really miss playing in a band. March 31st, my 90s band, Sega Nemesis, is playing Odell Brewing's big anniversary party. And that'll be outside from like 5 to 7. It's super fun. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and March 27th, I'm playing at 404. I'm starting a residency at Club 404. Sunday Fun Day with Jen Korte, and I'm just gonna play whatever people want to hear. So it'll be like an all request thing at 404, and it's free, and it's from 2 to 4 in the afternoon on Sundays.
All right, and we can follow you at LadyGang.
At LadyGang Music, at Jen Korte.
All right, good.
Yeah, all the things. So thank you so much for being here, y'all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for being here. We do have another session coming up later this month on the 24th featuring Stevie Gunther. We're going to be doing all things DIY, so check out more for tickets, all that good stuff at the museum website. I'm Bruce Trujillo. Thank you so much for being here for our latest session.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.